Look at this common carp in flat, dark water. Not a ripple, not a sound, just the fish, moving slow and quiet through the mud, reading the lake with sensors most modern anglers have completely forgotten about. For generations, the anglers who understood those sensors caught more fish than anyone else on the water, with nothing more than a slice of bread and something from a kitchen shelf. Then that knowledge quietly disappeared from every manual, every magazine, every tackle shop conversation. Tonight on Fish Zone, the reason it worked, the reason it vanished, and exactly how to use it the next time you're out. Welcome to Fish Zone, where experienced anglers learn what actually works. What if the single most effective carp bait you could bring to the water this season cost less than $1, took 5 minutes to prepare, and has been sitting in your kitchen the whole time you've been spending $40 a bag on commercial boilies? This isn't a novelty. This is a pattern that showed up across American freshwater fishing for decades before the tackle industry moved on without it. Back in the mid-1970s, the anglers working the Mississippi River Basin, the Ohio Valley reservoirs, and the slow backwaters of the Tennessee drainage all had versions of the same approach. Bread-based baits, soaked with natural attractants, fished close to structure on a simple hook. The state of New Jersey's own fisheries department documented dough ball and soaked bread techniques for common carp in their official angling publications. Stale bread soaked overnight, squeezed dry by hand, flavored with whatever the angler had at home. Bassmaster magazine documented the bread and dough tradition for American freshwater species. The Carp Anglers Group, the American counterpart to the European carp scene, pointed directly to plain white bread and homemade dough balls as the foundation baits before European-style boilies crossed the Atlantic. Then the 1980s happened. Boilies arrived commercially. Rod Hutchinson's flavor mixes hit the tackle shops. The catalog companies found out that a bait you make from a grocery store loaf is a bait you never buy again. So the old technique stopped getting written about. Not because it stopped working. It simply didn't fit the new retail model. Too cheap, too independent. But the fish never changed. The whole story behind this method, the exact preparation, the right soaking window, and the conditions where it produces the most strikes, is documented in the publication 3 Night Fishing Secrets, the trash bait that attracts giant carp. That's in the pinned comment for any angler who wants to take this beyond tonight. To access it right now, grab your phone and scan the QR code appearing on screen. Just point your phone camera at it. No typing needed. That's where you find this publication. And the next time you're standing at the water's edge, you'll already know what goes on the hook and why it works. Now here's what almost nobody has bothered to explain, even the anglers who still use this method. Picture the carp in dark water. The sun is down, visibility near zero. And here's the part that stops most anglers cold. The carp doesn't care, not even slightly, because carp don't hunt by sight the way a bass does. The carp is running 2 entirely different detection systems, both of them built for exactly this kind of water, and both of them more sensitive than almost any technology built to mimic them. The first system runs down the side of the fish, a strip of nerves and fluid-filled canals that runs from just behind the gill plate all the way to the tail. Think of it as a second set of ears, except instead of listening for sound in the air, this system reads every tiny pressure change, every movement, every micropulse moving through the water column. When a piece of soft bait settles toward the bottom and creates even the smallest displacement in the water, the carp registers it from yards away. When a hard commercial boilie drops in like a stone, that impact is registered too, but it reads like a rock falling, not like food. The fish flinches. Then it turns away. The second system is the nose, and this is where the science becomes genuinely staggering to read. Research published in peer-reviewed fisheries biology journals has confirmed that common carp can detect certain amino acids, the chemical building blocks released by natural food sources as they break down in water, at concentrations as low as 1 part per trillion. For context, that is 1 teaspoon of a compound dissolved across a volume of water equal to roughly 2,000 public swimming pools. The olfactory organs in a carp's head, those small flap-covered pits sitting just in front of the eyes, are so tightly folded with sensory tissue that the surface area inside is many times larger than the opening. Water passes continuously through as the fish swims, running over thousands of receptor cells that fire the moment they detect the right chemical signals. The carp doesn't look for food. The carp follows a scent corridor through dark water like a bloodhound on a trail. And here's what the biology explains that the marketing never will. When bread soaks in water, especially when it carries a natural oil-based attractant like garlic, it doesn't just sit there. It dissolves slowly, releasing a continuous cloud of water-soluble amino acids and sulfur-based compounds into the current. Research confirms that garlic's active compound, allicin, which forms within seconds of garlic being crushed or broken, is highly water-soluble. It disperses through the water column almost immediately on contact. In controlled aquaculture studies, garlic compounds added to fish feed produced measurably higher feeding responses. 3 of the most consistently documented attractant scents for freshwater species, salt, anise, and garlic, all work partly through the olfactory system and partly by overriding the chemical signatures a pressured fish associates with danger. The garlic-soaked bread doesn't smell like a boilie the carp has been caught on before. It smells like something real, something alive, something the carp's sensors are built to move toward. The difference in what hits the bottom matters enormously. A commercial boilie is engineered to stay intact. That is its great commercial advantage. It lasts on the rig for hours. But that durability has a cost. It releases scent slowly. It sits where it landed, hard and dense, not moving, not dissolving, barely signaling. A piece of garlic-soaked bread, pressed to the right firmness, behaves like natural food in water. It softens. It drifts slightly. The outer layer begins to dissolve in the first 4 minutes after hitting the bottom, releasing the garlic amino acid mixture outward in a spreading cloud. By 7 minutes, the bait is releasing at its peak signal rate, and the strip of nerves running down the carp's flank. It detects the subtle change in water displacement caused by the softening bait. Both systems are firing at once. The carp doesn't weigh the decision. It commits. The anglers along the Ohio and Mississippi drainage waters who use this approach across decades weren't guessing. They were watching the results over seasons. Different waters, different times of year, consistent outcome. The full breakdown of why this combination produces the response it does, and exactly how to build the soak, is in 3 Night Fishing Secrets, the trash bait that attracts giant carp. The same resource that documents the bait conditions, water temperatures, and rig setups behind this pattern. The pinned comment has the access link. To access it right now, grab your phone and scan the QR code appearing on the right side of the screen. Just point your phone camera at it. No typing needed. That's where you find this material. Here's the way it's actually done. First, the soak. Take standard white bread. Not the fresh-baked artisan kind, not whole grain. Plain white grocery store bread, a day or 2 old, so it has some firmness. Tear off the crust, take the soft interior, and press it into a shallow bowl or Ziploc bag. Pour in garlic oil, the kind already extracted, available at any grocery store. Enough to coat the surface. 5 minutes. That's the window. Not 2 minutes, not overnight. 5 minutes of contact allows the water-soluble allicin compounds to fully penetrate the bread's open cell structure without turning it to mush. The bread needs to hold shape under pressure, but soften quickly once it's in the water. Pull it out of the soak, shake off the excess, and press it gently in the palm of your hand until it holds a compact form. It should feel like cold clay. Not a wet sponge, not a dry lump. Right in between. Most anglers either don't soak long enough and lose the scent trail, or they soak too long and the bait falls apart on the cast. 5 minutes is where the preparation lines up with the biology. Then, the hook and the presentation. A size 8 to 10 bait holder hook. Nothing fancy, nothing with extra hardware adding weight. Thread the bait over the hook point so the hook is fully covered, but the point stays free. No sinker heavy enough to drag the bait down hard. The whole point is the descent. Slow, natural, the way a piece of real food sinks through still water. Not a cannonball drop, a drift. The bait should take somewhere between 8 and 12 seconds to reach the bottom from a depth of 6 feet. Any faster than that, and the displacement signal reads wrong to the lateral line system. Carp working shallow structure at night have been conditioned over millions of years to recognize that particular sinking pattern as food. Mess with the rate of descent and you alter the signal. That's the mistake most anglers make with every bait they fish. They add weight until the bait hits bottom in 2 seconds and wonder why the carp moves off. And finally, the moment the line moves. The carp picks up the scent corridor first. It might cover 12 to 20 yards of water to get to the bait in the dark. It arrives at the bait's position, hovering just above it. Then it drops and sucks. This is not the violent strike of a largemouth bass. The carp creates a small vacuum with its protruding lips and draws the bait in. The rod tip shows it as a tiny, almost imperceptible dip, barely a twitch. Then, the line goes slack. That slack moment is the fish turning to move away with the bait already inside its mouth. That is the only moment to set the hook. Not on the first twitch, on the slack. Count 2 seconds after the line goes slack, then lift. Early and you pull it right out. Late and the fish feels the resistance and spits. 2 seconds. That rhythm was figured out by anglers on the Tennessee River and the Illinois reservoirs long before rod sensors existed, and it hasn't changed because the fish hasn't changed. This approach lines up consistently with still water and slow-moving river environments, farm ponds, reservoir backwaters, lake inlets, the mouths of creeks flowing into larger bodies. Look for submerged timber, weed edges, soft mud bottom dropping off to slightly deeper water. Late spring through early fall are the peak windows. On the Mississippi River drainage, carp are abundant from Minnesota to Louisiana. The same fish, the same sensors, the same response to the same bait, across a stretch of water covering half a continent. First session out, expect contact within the first 2 to 3 casts once you locate where the fish are holding. First week, expect to start seeing the pattern consistently. The garlic bread soak is not finicky about conditions. It works across water temperatures, across seasons, across different pressures on different waters. And the cost? A loaf of bread runs under $4 at any grocery store. A bottle of garlic oil runs under $3. That's the entire lifetime cost of this bait, not per trip, not per season, for life. The biology backs all of this directly. The common carp's olfactory rosette, the tightly folded sensory tissue inside the nasal cavity, is dense enough to detect amino acids and water-soluble compounds at parts per trillion. That sensitivity didn't develop in response to commercially manufactured boilies introduced in the 1980s. It evolved over millions of years in response to exactly the kinds of naturally decomposing organic material that bread mimics when it soaks and softens in water. The fish's lateral line, that strip of fluid-filled canals and hair cells running gill to tail, is sensitive to vibration and pressure changes in the 10 to 100 Hz range, which corresponds precisely to the displacement pattern created by a slowly settling, softening bait drifting toward the bottom. The fish is built for this. It has been built for this since long before the first tackle catalog was ever printed. And the historical record from American freshwater carp fishing tells the same story. The old issues of state fisheries publications from Texas, New Jersey, Ohio, and the Mississippi River National Recreation Area all documented dough balls and bread-based baits as the foundational carp technique. The Carp Anglers Group's historical review of American carp fishing pointed straight to plain white bread and homemade dough balls as the dominant bait before European-style fishing spread here. The anglers on the Great Lakes drainage, on the Ohio Valley reservoirs, on the Missouri tributaries, different waters, different climates, same answer, written down across generations. The soaking technique with natural attractants like garlic or anise appears in catfish and carp bait records from Midwest fishing communities stretching back before the commercial boilie arrived. Biology, history, both pointing the same direction. Fishing pressure on good carp water is higher than it's ever been. The fish in pressured lakes and rivers have seen thousands of boilies. They've learned to associate the smell of commercially engineered attractants with hooks, with line, with the sensation of being caught and released and caught again. A bait that smells like real dissolved organic material with a garlic signal is something entirely different. It doesn't trip the alarm the way a familiar commercial bait does, and it costs nothing. Picture the next night you're out on a quiet reservoir or a slow bend in the river. The anglers around you are fishing the same catalog boilies they bought last season. The bait sitting on your hook cost under $1. It's been in the water for 6 minutes. The scent trail has already spread 20 yards in every direction, and somewhere out in the dark, a carp has turned onto that trail and started moving. If this added something to what you already know, search Fish Zone on YouTube next time you're online. We put out documented techniques every week, and every one of them goes through the same biology and history before anything goes on a hook. And here's a question for the comments. When you're targeting carp, do you fish lakes or rivers? Drop your answer. Everyone gets read. And if you want to go deeper on this, next time you're on your phone or tablet, search Fish Zone. There's a longer piece on coldwater carp behavior and how the feeding window shifts through the seasons that picks up right where this one leaves off. The biology of what carp eat doesn't shift with the catalog season. The bait that worked in dark water on the Mississippi in 1974 still works tonight for the same reasons it worked then. Because the fish is the same fish, running the same sensors, responding to the same signals. Fish Zone, where serious anglers learn what actually works. This video was put together for the angler who's been on the water long enough to know the difference between what gets marketed and what actually produces fish. The one who's watched expensive boilies sit untouched while the carp moved right past. The one who's driven home from a night session with the cooler empty and the rods still wet, not because the fish weren't there, but because the bait wasn't speaking their language. That empty cooler isn't bad luck. It's information, and the records have been showing the way out for 50 years. What you heard tonight is not opinion. It's biology. The same olfactory sensitivity research that peer-reviewed fisheries science has been confirming since the 1990s, translated into what it actually means on the bank at midnight. It's history. The documented record of anglers across the Ohio Valley, the Mississippi Basin, and the Great Lakes drainage who worked this out before any of it was ever written down in a catalog. And it's the kind of knowledge that doesn't expire because it's rooted in how the fish is built, not in what the bait industry decided to sell this season. Fish Zone is not a personality channel. It's a curated archive for the anglers who still believe that understanding the fish is more important than buying a new product. The ones who fish with the biology instead of against it. The ones who keep showing up at the water when everybody else is watching gear review videos and wondering why their catch rate hasn't improved. The full story of this technique, the precise soak window, the hook presentation, the seasonal adjustments for different U.S. river systems, and the conditions where this method consistently outperforms commercial bait, is laid out in 3 Night Fishing Secrets, the trash bait that attracts giant carp. To access it right now, grab your phone and scan the QR code appearing on screen. Just point your phone camera at it. No typing needed. That's where you find this comprehensive resource. The water will be there tonight. The carp will be working the dark water near the structure, running their sensors, following the corridor toward the right signal. The bread is already in your kitchen. The garlic oil is on the shelf. The only thing left is the cast.